The syllabus. Kind of boring, but we got to talk about it. On the first day I like talking about material because that's what we're really here to learn. You have the syllabus out in front of you, this course information sheet. I'll go through and scan through it and tell you what I think is important, but you can go ahead and pause this video and read the parts that I'm skipping over because I'm still expecting that you know those. I'm going to start up front by saying there are two sources of information for this class, two primary ways we communicate. There's Desire to Learn, and then separately there's the web page, okay? And I use those in different ways. I use Desire to Learn to put grades out, use it as a Dropbox, use the discussion boards, okay? Those tools I like. Just setting up pages and getting update, making revision and pushing the revision to D2L is a real pain. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I like old-fashioned websites. So that's why there's also the website radford.edu/ and then itech, whatever the course number is. And you can, from there, you can drill down to the semester of interest. And both of those two sources link to the other. On the D2L, there's a course web page linked near the top of its home page. And for any of my web pages, at the footer and the header, there's these little links here, including D2L. So you can go back and forth. It's not bad to maybe bookmark both of them. They both have good information. But. Okay, so just going over the course information here. Office hours. You don't need an appointment to drop by. Sometimes people think like they have to email me and warn me they're going to be coming by. Office hours are when I'm sitting in my office, doors open, I'm twiddling my thumbs, bored out of my skull, wishing somebody would come by and talk with me. It's also, I mean, why am I sitting there in my office? You're paying for me. Yeah, you're paying my salary for me to sit there in my office. So, you know, make use of that. Get your money's worth. Okay. So yeah, you can come by office hours when you have questions on things. You can certainly email me. You can also post on the discussion board in Desire to Learn. So, okay, textbook. I sort of mentioned that really briefly at the end of class last time, I think. If not, I'll do it at the very beginning of class next time. We have exams, quizzes, homeworks, whatever listed on the syllabus for your particular class. I'm using the same video for several classes. And I just want to point out that, first of all, spelling and grammar count. Okay, if you're taking a quiz on D2L, there's a fill in the blank, make sure that the words you fill into the blank make that whole sentence read grammatically, okay? When you're writing code and you have comments in your code, yeah, spell correctly. Don't make people stop and think and say, wait, what are they trying to say there? Communication is important in all your classes and all aspects of life, and coding is no exception. D2L quizzes are no exception. So, if in this class we turn in hard copy for assignments, hopefully that should be clear on the assignment, on each assignment. If you're turning in hard copy, please make sure it's stapled. If one person doesn't staple it, I can sort of figure it out. As soon as two people don't staple their papers and I set down a big stack and they get a bit mussed up, then I'm spending my time figuring out now, wait, this is page 2 of whose homework and what's going on? So, okay. In grading coding for coding assignments, not only are you graded for the results of your program, but also how well your program is written, good style. So that includes just good program design, have a main function that calls helper functions for their own tasks. No one function should be too big. Use meaningful names, okay? I'm not necessarily big on having lots of comments, but do have, if you have meaningful names, you go a long way towards self-documentation, okay? Okay, there will be some short quizzes in class, maybe, in addition to anything that's on D2L between classes. Fair game for quiz questions, I think. If I'm being nice, I'm like, I just want to give students points. I want to give them a chance to maybe make up for any missed points or whatever. I'm going to make some easy quiz questions. One thing I might do is just literally use a previous quiz question And my expectation is that if you missed a question earlier, you have gone and figured out why and figured out what the answer is, either at least at a superficial level, if not at the concept level. So if I repeat a question like that, my view is, hey, this is a gimme question. And I'm always surprised at how many people don't use these gimme questions. They come to class, they haven't figured out why they missed classes, missed points a while back, and they end up missing more. So don't let that happen to you. You're smarter than that, I know it. Late policy, you know, I want to be able to talk about homeworks when we come to class and talk about details of them. So basically I've no late policy. I'll take off a little bit if you walk in the door late. And we're already maybe talking about the homeworks, or maybe not. Now, if you do have a significant illness or issue, let me know, hopefully in advance, and I'll take that into account. But by and large, you know, get your homeworks in on time. One reason I don't like offering extensions is, you know, consider 2 students. You all are under a lot of constraints, right? You all have other classes. Here's a student says, oh, Barland doesn't allow late assignments. I'm going to go and I'm going to do a crappier job over on my English paper because I'm really working on this program here. It's taking me a lot longer than I expected. And though they go and maybe get it in on time, but they've been, you know, taking resources away from another class. And so if I come back and say, oh, I'm going to offer an extension, well, that person is just kind of hosed, aren't they, for believing what I'd said in the first place. So, yeah, enough said. Campus closings. You know, the Virginia State Legislature says all state agencies must have an emergency plan in place of how they're going to function if there is say a pandemic. This was when there was fears of a flu pandemic about a decade ago. They set up these policies. And we have a pretty simple, clean answer here. Yeah, if there's any sort of big problem, we can just have meetings online. So if there is a university closing, like a snow day, well, maybe not entirely a snow day, we'll still have class, and I might be on virtual classroom on D2L, on Breeze, Adobe Breeze. And there's a link at the top and bottom of each of the web pages with a link to Breeze/snow day. So, okay, here's the part that I want to, that I can't not talk about. I've learned from experience. The honor policy, okay? So you have the standard university honor code, you should know that. I'm going to talk about details when it comes to coding, and I'm going to try to get kind of specific about things so you have a good idea for what I'm after and what's off limits. The guiding line is the same for everything. Everything you write should be coming out of your own head, okay? So, okay. So, certain things you just cannot do. Receive homework from others, have others type in code for you, show your code to other people. Yeah, no, just don't. Yeah, that's going too far. Any sort of electronic sending or receiving of stuff is probably, yeah, that's a bright line there. You cannot copy or paste code, except for some exceptions I'll mention in a moment. Don't let other people copy your work, or that counts as big of a violation as if you had copied somebody else's work. And that also includes inadvertently letting people copy it, like leaving a file, you know, on a thumb drive sitting on the desk, or leaving a printer sitting at the printer for an hour or something like that. So a hard copy sitting at a printer. Okay. Here's now where it gets more interesting. I want to talk about what you can do. So if you're writing code, you get stuck. You know, if you're getting some compiler message, yeah, definitely ask people, what the heck does this, message here mean? Class ends, or open, close curly bracket, unexpected. Somebody might say, oh, you've probably, you have a class declaration that got closed off earlier and you're missing a open bracket or something like that. That's all good. Even if You can even show them the one line of code that's generating that syntax error. Okay, I'm okay with that. I want you to stuck and beat your head on that. That's silly for everybody. Yeah, you can go ahead and search the code for how to do, search the web for how to do things. But here are my two caveats on that. First of all, you can't go off and find an assignment that happens to be exactly, you know, the assignment or 95% of the code that I want you to turn in. That shouldn't happen. I should be choosing homeworks that are different than what's out there. But so you know, example is, hey, I need to, for this homework, we need to go and, you know, open a file and read a bunch of stuff and handle any exceptions in there. Yeah, that's the sort of stuff you go and look in documentation. You go out and look at other examples of code that does that, and you do it for your task, and that's fine. So the second caveat is stuff you find out on the web, type it in yourself. No copy pasting. And here's the reason. Well, again, two reasons. First of all, you actually, as you're typing it in, you're sort of processing it and thinking about and paying closer attention to the actual class names you're using, and thinking about what's going on. Second of all, this also helps keep you, if there's a big chunk of code from somewhere, you're like, oh yeah, this is all code that, you know, does this file reading stuff and does a whole bunch of extra stuff. I may not want you to copy and paste a big, huge half page of code and put that in. Having to type it yourself sort of is a little self-check. It's a little incentive to only do the parts you need, or incentive for you to understand what you're actually writing. Okay, so I have some more examples there. Definitely go through and read that. Okay, I want to encourage you to talk with classmates about the homework and how you're approaching it and what you might need to do and things you're trying to figure out. How will I get that section to work if I'm doing it this way, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. Sometimes you might even sit down and try to have a few lines of actual code to see if it compiles to do something. Okay, here's what I ask. After you've sat down and talked with your friend and maybe worked on actual code, delete that file, get rid of any hard copy, get rid of any notes you take. Sit down a little bit later, not just immediately. You're not doing a short-term brain dump. Later sit down and rederive the code that you'd written with your neighbor, okay? In doing so, you're going to end up with different variable. You probably won't remember all the variable names exactly. You're going to end up with different variable names. You're going to end up with different spacing. You know, it's going to be noticeably different. And if you're not doing that, I will notice, and homework checkers will notice, too many similarities. So if you're writing it down yourself from scratch, your code is going to be a little bit different, even if you talked about exactly how to approach it with somebody else an hour earlier. So, okay, and that's good. That's how you learn, right? You talk with other people, you figure things out, but you need to be able to come up with it yourself at the end of the day. So that's why we have that rule there. Okay, you can certainly use anything on the course webpage and anything from the textbook. In fact, from those two places, you can copy and paste. That's the exception to the copy-paste rule. If there's an example program that I give you as part of the homework or it's in the lecture notes, you can copy and paste that whole thing. Or if there's something in the textbook, you paid for the textbook, you can copy and paste that code there. Okay. You can also go off and find out, you know, how do I open a file in Java or in Rack or wherever, and you go to the language documentation, and they might have a little sample 2- or 3-line program. Yeah, you can use that. Don't copy paste that. But any code that's in language documentation, you can use that without citing it. That's sort of just part of knowing, you know, the basics and the foundation. So you don't need to give credit or anything like that. And use web tutorials, language references, all that. Okay. You can show and discuss your code with a professor or other faculty or any on-duty peer instructors. For the upper division classes, that are peer instructors probably don't know the details of the course content, but if they do, you can talk with them in that capacity as a peer instructor, okay? They have been taught how to not give too much away, not do too much of the homework. Okay. Ask on the discussion board. That's probably the easiest and first thing I do. Ask on the discussion board. Like, gosh, the homework says to open a file, but you know, what if the file doesn't exist? Whatever. What else? Okay, if you do get help from somewhere else, cite it, with the exception of stuff that is common knowledge. So again, stuff from textbooks, some stuff from language documentation, APIs, that stuff you don't need to cite. But if you go to Stack Overflow and get a solution from there, yeah, that you should go ahead and maybe cite that. In fact, that's actually part of Stack Overflow's terms of use, if you look at those. But okay. So you're allowed to, go and get things, but when you sit down and type it in, you should be understanding it. And the source, the help, the things you find online should be things that aren't the exact homework. And you don't get code for exact homework from friends. You talk about it, perhaps in detail with friends, but you sit down and write it yourself without reference to what you're doing before. So if you're not sure about any of this, you're like, oh, I'm doing this, and it sounds like what he said that first day, but I think I'm overdoing it, or I think I should be able to do more, but it sounds like he said I couldn't do that. Yeah, come talk with me. Right, I'm here to help you learn. You're here to learn. We want to make that all work. Programming can be beautiful and elegant and an awesome experience. And it can be the most frustrating thing in the world when you're beating your head against some wall of some stupid mistake that is not a big conceptual problem. Yeah, so I want to minimize the latter, maximize the former. Okay, and then just the last couple things here. Using a laptop in class, let's go ahead and I'll say, yeah, you can go ahead and have a laptop in class. In fact, in some classrooms that have, if we're meeting in a lab, maybe I want you to log in as you come in and sit down, and then you can try things during lecture. And maybe we're talking about something and we're talking about doing files, and I happen to mention exceptions, and you're like, oh, what exceptions would I need to worry about? And you might go off to Wikipedia or the Java language documentation and be looking that up, and I'm okay with that. I can sort of tell when that stuff like that is happening. Do not check your email, check your texts, go visit Facebook, smile at that Snapchat you just got. And part of this is for courtesy of those around you, but you're very aware when the person next to you is not paying attention. And in fact, you're like, oh, I got to really do well in this course here. It's really important for me. I'm really going to work hard. And then, look at that cute little kitten on that. That's a cute video over there. Oh wait, what did the professor just say? So to help other people, please refrain from things like that. As an incentive, perhaps, if I get a vibe that you're sitting there just looking at your screen, I will be more tempted to ask questions of you. And if you are just reading along with the lecture notes and trying other things and engaged, you'll be able to answer those questions. So, okay. And I'll let you read the end about some of the various resources that the campus has for various situations in that last paragraph. And whew, thanks. Let's go back and start learning more material here.